All right, Lions fans, let's talk some Lions. Talk Lions, Lions talk. I want to talk about Bob Quinn and how he's this franchise, arguably, I don't even want to say arguably. I could basically scratch that because I almost want to say confidently that he is the Lions' best GM they ever had. Even over the GM that picked Barry Sanders, definitely over the GM that picked Calvin Johnson, even over the GM that picked Ndamukong Suh. Now, of course, we're going back as far as the Super Bowl era. Anything before that, you're talking about a team that was legendary. With Night Train Lane and all those different guys, and even Dick LeBeau and Lynn Barney and all the greats when they was actually winning titles per se. But let's talk about Bob Quinn, and of course, people want to add statistics and everything else to try to make my case wrong. But all right, let's say like if you have, with the exception of one thing that Mayhew did, that I will give Mayhew the edge over Bob Quinn, but then at the same time, I can negate that by allowing Mayhew to, the thing that he did right, he did wrong. Okay, all right. Let's say for Mayhew, he drafted Ndamukong Suh. All right, he drafted Ndamukong Suh. He didn't give him an extension because he couldn't. Okay, money reasons. I get that, right? But with that being said, you had a chance to get his replacement in Aaron Donald. And instead, you wouldn't give Stafford another weapon. That's where that's where he knocks himself out. You couldn't sign Ndamukong Suh. Okay, I understand that. But when it came to having this replacement, you chose not to, instead to give Matthew Stafford another weapon. So that's why, I couldn't consider Mayhew. Millen, you gave us Calvin Johnson. But before you gave us Calvin Johnson, you gave us three failures. Three failed attempts. I almost call them failure, but three failed attempts at that position. And Charles Rogers, Roy Williams, and Mike Williams. So we're going to take that out. Even if you did put him in position to draft Matthew Stafford. So why? Okay, let's go back to Bob Quinn. Why do I say that Bob Quinn is like the best GM they ever had? Okay. Can anybody find me a mistake that Bob Quinn made? Somebody could say when he took the Florida picks, when the Gator picks, when he took Tease Tabor and Jared Davis. Okay, you could say they were mishaps. Okay, you could say that. You could say when he let go of the offensive lineman from Michigan, and I believe he went to Denver. Or you could say he let go of Sam Martin or Ashawn Robinson, and that sort of thing. Or how he traded Darius Slay and Golden Tate. And okay, all right, okay, come on. Anything else you have? How he did what? How he signed Trey Flowers, Halapalooty Vitae, to these big contracts, or Jesse James or Chase Daniels. Okay. Now here comes my defense from everything that he did. Trey Flowers is by far, with the exception of Ndamukong Suh, I would say he's the best lineman the best defensive lineman the Lions have had in quite some time. Yeah. Trey Flowers is better than everybody they had on that defensive line since Ndamukong Suh. Now, you're talking about overpaying him? That is yet to be seen. Because if you give him the right counterpart, not counterpart, let's say the right complementary piece, you will see Trey Flowers go to the next point. But if you're asking him to do everything on that defensive line, then you're not going to get much. By him having a guy like and a guy like Shelton next to him, you're going to see him excel. But the next phase to Trey Flowers is get him. Of course, it depends on what type of defense that they're going to run. My imagine is probably going to be a 3-4, and so you will see someone maybe like an outside linebacker or something like that. All right, someone is going to give his back support. If Trey Flowers is going to dominate the point of attack, you need somebody to counter. To cover him if they were to chip him, they were to double him, or whatever the case may be, because he can't really do his full job if somebody behind him is not doing their job. Now, that's why I believe that they are missing this one outside linebacker who's I go back to not Jared, but Josh Allen. That guy, man, him and Trey Flowers. Anyway, I leave that alone. All right, let's move over to Halapalooza Vitae. People say like he's a bust because of what? What? Because when he played what? Guard? But has he played at tackle? Which is what they brought him in. They brought him in here because he played tackle. He played left and right tackle in Philadelphia. Has he played tackle yet? I don't know. Somebody can tell me. Okay, what else do you have? Danny Amendola, $6 million. What's wrong with that? You could have gave that to who? You could have drafted a guy, but that's a wasted draft pick. You don't have to. You only signed him for 1 year. You didn't sign him for multiple years, that 1 year. Or how he traded for Evans and Griffin. But the fans wanted Evans and Griffin. But you traded up a 6th-round pick. Now, how many 6th-round picks that the Lions have kept since Bob Quinn been here? Okay, well, you didn't sign Kenny Galladay. I wouldn't sign Kenny Galladay either. Why? Why would you pay so high for a luxury such as that? Why? He drafted Kenny Galladay. And is it giving him some credit that he drafted a guy that nobody else did? Is he capable of doing it again? Okay. All right, what else do you have? Let's go with some positives. He completely revamped that offensive line. Even when he had to recorrect his mistakes, such as Wagner and Lang and so forth. But I believe he gave, at the time, I want to say that was Carwell's team. He gave him what he probably was asking for. But this time, he even with the draft picks that he had with what is the guy named from Michigan that they had on the offensive line that they let go, which I definitely applauded for doing so, because you don't overpay for average talent. Now, somebody said they overpaid for Trey Flowers. So Trey Flowers is not average. Look what he was able to do with the Patriots. People say, well, that was the Patriots, Bill Belichick. Well, no, it's not so much as Bill Belichick. What Bill Belichick was able to do is that he knew so much information. He knew where everybody had to be. So he knew exactly. So like if he were to go into the draft, he knew exactly what he needed to complement what he has going. If somebody said, well, Bob Quinn messed up when he got Matt Patricia. Okay, I give you this. I give you that for this one extent. Matt Patricia didn't have another gear. He didn't know enough. He knew something, but he didn't know enough. In other words, everything he knew wasn't completely tested on his own. He always had his big brother or his father figure in Bill Belichick to oversee him. Now, take in consideration this. Bill Belichick has a plethora of information about football. It's not just one side of the ball. It's not just the other side of the ball. It's just not the third part of the side of the ball, which is the special teams. It's not offense, defense, or special team that he knows. He knows the line position. He knows the linebacker position. He knows the quarterback position. He knows the receiver position. He constantly evolves in his learning. That's what makes him so beyond like an ordinary coach. In comparison to a Patricia just knows what he knows. And in most cases, he knows what he knows to the extent probably more better than anybody else. The only thing about it, if you can figure out what he knows, you can beat him to the punch. What else does Patricia have? Nothing else. So that's how Patricia got canceled out. So he eventually became a person who got in his own way because he didn't have anything else to go to. Only thing he knew is what he knew, which is fair. Now he can go to the drawing board now, and he actually, if you were to get another position like a defensive coordinator, and you may see a different Patricia altogether. Why? Because he learned his system was battle tested here for almost 3 years. Now I can go and make adjustments to his whatever. That's the problem that I have with the Lions drafting a first, an inexperienced guy and general manager, head coach, etc. Because they're going to learn on the job, but it's going to come at the extent of having 50 years of losing in the rearview mirror. So there's not going to be much time to allow them to actually figure it out before they actually get released, and then it's another setback because now you have not just rehire, but you have to do it in a way far as like this that's not allowing the 50 years to be 50 years plus. And at the same time, you have to give something that's going to continue what's already been started. But anyway, that's that. But I'm going to say this about Bob Quinn, why he's the best. Uh, Somebody say go back to the Teach Tabor and Jared Davis. Okay, so what's wrong with that? Was Teach Tabor was too slow? Okay. Or Jeff Okuda in at the third overall pick. Who would you have preferred him to get? Isaiah Simmons. Why? Because he can play safety, he can play line, he can play linebacker, he can be versatile. Okay, what does that mean? You find me in that draft a Ndamukong Suh type of impactful player, and then I give you the argument why you shouldn't have drafted Jeff Okuda. But if I were to say this to counter that, why drafting Jeff Okuda was actually the better pick? Now you don't have to worry about your cornerback position. Somebody say he's not fast enough to be a corner. You could have said that about Darius Slay. You could say that about Richard Sherman. You could say that about a lot of people. People say Darius Slay is fast, but when he first came in the league, how fast was he really playing? He had to learn positioning, techniques, angles, everything else. So until you able to understand that, you're not really going to be able to play at your full capability. Then somebody say, when you draft somebody at number 3, a cornerback at number 3, you got to come in like Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders wasn't Deion Sanders. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If y'all were to look at Deion Sanders' career versus the highlights that he actually made the play, but look at his game plan. I mean, it took Deion Sanders a long time to perfect his craft, even as skilled and talented that he was. Now, of course, in my time, when I was looking at Deion Sanders, my favorite corner was Rod Woodson, because Rod Woodson had a great secondary when he was with Pittsburgh. He had a great secondary. So he didn't have to do everything. When you look at the Lions, when you draft for Jeff Okuda, he has to do so much as a coming in. Deion Sanders, even when he came to the Falcons, he didn't have to do as much because the Falcons wasn't really projected to do anything. But once they start getting into a rhythm, they kind of excelled a little bit. But he didn't have no more help. So you saw the flaws of Deion Sanders. Now, they say Deion Sanders could lock down one side of the field. Okay, so he could lock down one side of the field. Well, that's how a cornerback's supposed to be. But what good is you lock down to one side of the field? The other side of the field is actually progressing. The reason why I like the Jeff Okuda pick because he's a piece to the puzzle. He don't have to be the guy. And I believe a lot of the Lions fans are looking for the guy. Now, once again, we're talking about why Bob Quinn was like their best receiver. I mean, best receiver, forgive me. Why he was their best general manager. He's their best general manager because look what he assembled. He gave this team, regardless of the fact of that they let him go, he gave this team an identity for once. For one thing, he got rid of those. First of all, he cleared out all upper management. Regardless, Martha Ford okayed it, or she was the one that was whatever. I believe it was by his, we got to clear out all this and restructure all this, this. Uh, excuse me. For 3 years, definitely the Lions cap situation. They always went into the off season, or not off. Yeah, that was it off season, but they always went into the season with extra money to spend. So he got rid of those jerseys and he replaced them with 3 good jerseys. I like that, for example. But that is me just talking. But he actually also he gave this team actually teeth. He gave this team actually an identity. Are they still losing? Yeah, they're still losing, but it's not the way the Lions lose. He actually made this team more competitive. And this is why I applaud Matt Patricia. Now, Matt Patricia, once again, the reason why they can close out all those games that they lost, is because of the fact he didn't have another gear. He didn't know how to use what he had. He didn't have he wasn't that well rounded. So he had limitations, and his limitations got the best of him. So if what got you where you are, like if it gets you a 14 or it gets you a double digit lead or get you a lead going into the fourth quarter, you stick to what you know. Because more likely you don't have anything else to finish the deal. You got some people that are closers. You got some that are start to finish type of guys. You got some guys that can build it but can't finish it. Patricia's a guy I believe that he can build it but couldn't finish it. And I'm going back to Quinn. I believe that Quinn is a guy who built the franchise. And I don't know if he was capable of finishing it or not because he didn't have enough time based upon the one flaw. If there is a flaw that he made, I'll give him this. That he brought in a guy who he thought that could actually evolve. But I believe Patricia tanked out. He gave up and whatever the case may be. And, if I'm any coach or general manager here, this is not the destination that you want to go to. You want to go to it now because based upon what Quinn did. Quinn built off of what Mayhew and them did. Even though he had to tear down what they did, he built off of it. So the next regime, if they do it right, they will actually build off what was established. I'm not talking about just the personnel that he brought in, but there's actually legitimate accountability and structure. It is structure. He actually elevated the way that how they approach it as an organization. He changed it. Somebody can say that's Sheila Ford Hamp. That's yet to be determined. Because I until you give me an explanation, a legitimate, where I can really consider it worth something. Do you give me a reason why you're still playing your assets in the last game of the season when the game is meaningless? Other than what? They on a payroll. And if they're just on a payroll, then they're not much of assets because you're not looking for your future. And that's the reason why, once again, I say get rid of Stafford. Because if as considered as valuable as the fans like him to consider him as, he is not valuable here. He's not appreciated here. Not by fans. Never mind the fans. The fans got 50 years of losing in their rearview mirror. That's why they're always going to blame the quarterback. That's why they're always going to blame anybody who they believe that they want the very best out of. They're going to blame. It's like the person that you love is going to get the bulk of all the hits, all the blame, because that they're walking in love. They got a lot of power. Stafford has a lot of power, but yet and still, the Lions still losing. And of course, ultimately it's not his fault. It's a team game, but he has the most power on the team. As all the personnel, he has the most power. That's equivalent to Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders. They had all the power, but I don't know if they know how to use their power. But maybe it's not up to them. If you had a guy like for example, the Baltimore Ravens general manager, Ozzie Newsome, when he drafted Ray Lewis, it was his job to go get you Ed Reed or Terrell Suggs or Haloti Nada, or whatever, whoever that it was his job to go get players to complement Ray Lewis. That was his job. So there's only so much that a player can do to demand to get help. But at the same time, Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders knew when to quit because they knew what organization they was a part of. I don't know if Matthew Stafford understands that. And you could, on one side, you could say he's not a quitter, he's a gamer, he's a competitor. But it's like how you protect yourself to validate that. Are you still trying to run through linebackers when your body is brittle? So anyway, that's going on somewhere else. But the point of what I'm saying is what Bob Quinn did for this team. He established your offensive line. If anything else that needs to be done, you could add a piece there to the offensive line that's established. Your running back situation, he established you that. The quarterback, I'm not a Matthew Stafford guy. I 2 years ago, they should let him go then. I mean, let him go. Anyway, but other than that, he pretty much got you a defensive line with Trey Flowers, Danny Shelton, and Penny Sinny. He got you a defensive line that you could build off of, right? I don't want to say he doesn't have a receiver core because now it's up for grabs because what you're going to do with Kenny Galladay, what you're going to do with Marvin Jones. But he did give he did do the best thing that you can do. Okay, let's say like if the new regime goes in a different direction with a quarterback. So like the plan is to let go of Stafford or to no longer let Stafford be the future, all right? And this is like if you went ahead and drafted a rookie and you're going to start him out the gate. You gave your rookie quarterback arguably the best weapon that you can give actually a rookie quarterback. You gave him a running game and you gave him a tight end. That's going to help him above all else. That's more so him actually being a vet. Because that's the total opposite what Matthew Stafford had. He didn't have a run game and he didn't have a tight end. So he didn't have an old line that could possibly protect him, or even if they're not good in the pass protection, they're good at making holes, holding up that foot, making for the running game. And that takes off a lot of pressure. That's one thing that they didn't do for Stafford not going to say one thing, but above all else, that's the main thing what they didn't do for Stafford that actually could actually made him more prolific, more accurate, more mature, actually making him elite, was they didn't give him an offensive line that actually can establish a run game. But I almost want to say that's not based upon this player personnel, as much as it is accountability in the locker room. And what I mean by that, when you got Taylor Decker, you don't know who you got at your left guard. You got Joe Dahl or whoever that you have, Joe Dahl in the game. But even when he had the guy, who was that? What's that guy's name from Michigan, the lineman? And people say they was upset that they let him go. And he replaced him with Halapoulivaati Vitae. You draft Jonah Jackson. You draft Ragnow. He draft Decker. He signed Halapoulivaati Vitae. He draft Crosby. Okay. He did something what Mayhew Millen couldn't do. He gave Stafford something to ease off Stafford. Even, like I said, even if you choose to go in a different direction for Matthew Stafford. And let's say, for example, people may have a problem with starting a rookie right out the gate. But the rookie can excel. It's like somebody said, within Patrick Mahomes excel, or you could say Deshaun Watson excel. You could say any good quarterback that's actually excelling. Well, the reason why those quarterbacks can excel because everything else was in place. If Patrick Mahomes were to came to the Lions organization when Stafford came here, there is no way he would excel. If you were to put Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, anybody else in that situation that you put Matthew Stafford, they wouldn't have been the player they became. Matthew Stafford was put in a position to fail. And it's not that's why I can't blame the team for going forward, Only thing I hold Matthew Stafford responsible for is to be control of himself. And that's the problem that I have with him. He doesn't keep himself controlled. He would do things like without thinking. You know, that's the only problem that I have with Stafford. He would run through a guy instead of sliding. He will hold on to the ball instead of throwing the ball out, uh, throwing out of bounds or something, or he would take the sack when he don't have to take the sack. He would throw the ball when he don't have to throw the ball. He would do these things that would have me question him why he's doing it, and that basically there's like an indication what's going on inside his head. And those type of guys, I need somebody that's cool, somebody that's calm. That will be the guy that regardless if they're not the most accurate quarterback, they're not the most talented quarterback, they're not the most athletic quarterback, and all that good stuff. They may not even most, I don't know if I said most accurate. Yeah, I think I said, but they can actually slow the game. They can slow themselves down. You could win with that. That's like a Troy Aikman, if you will. So, but anyway, that's my gripe for that. But once again, I'm saying Bob Quinn is the best general manager they ever had, even with the so-called undevelopment of Matt Patricia. The reason why those Lions lost all those games, and the reason why I say Matt Patricia once again is a good head coach, he was a good coach. He just never. Well, anyway, he's a good head coach for this reason, is because of the fact that other defensive coordinators had to counter to what he was doing, or other coordinators took what he was doing and applied to their system. That's the thing with the Lions, is that they never get a chance to finish the job. You get a Barry Sanders and you get a Herman Moore on offense. But what is your defense looking like? Okay, you got Benny Blaze, Chris Spielman. What else? What else do you have? You trade your first round overall pick for and get Patrick Swilling, where you could have Willie Roth. Okay. What I'm saying is nothing is ever complete. You got Barry Sanders, you got Herman Moore, you got Brett Perriman, you even got Johnny Morton. Even to a later extent, I think you believe you have a David Sloan, somewhat of a tight end. I think he went to a Pro Bowl actually, but no quarterback. Okay, you had a quarterback in Eric Kramer. You had a quarterback in Dave Craig. You had a few quarterbacks. You didn't have to do much because you have a running back, but they didn't build on the offensive line. They didn't make their defense stout. They incompleted the job. Same thing I go with when it came to the Ndamukong Suh era and Calvin. You got the triplets: Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford, and Ndamukong Suh. What side of the ball was dominant? They had Ndamukong Suh, and by them extending, I believe they extended Calvin Johnson first. By them extending that, and then of course they went to Matthew Stafford, you're not able to do what? To dominate on that side of the defense side of the ball, which arguably you have, in my time frame, arguably one of the best defensive linemen that been coming around in quite some time, definitely in Lions history. Why didn't you build off of that? You got Nick Fairley, you started, and then you stopped. Even when you had Sammy Hill and I believe it was another gentleman. Well, anyway, you had a rotation, but you didn't make it dominant. Now, don't get me wrong, you was a top 10 defense, but you didn't make it dominant when you had the opportunity to. So with that being said, what Quinn did for this organization, he put this in his team in all three phases to be dominant. The special teams, he got you a punter, he got you a kicker. You could actually make that special teams dominant. Your offensive side of the ball with your offensive line. You plug in another player, I'm going to say the left guard, you can make this team dominant. Okay, you got your running game. You can give him a counterpart. You can make that running game dominant. You don't have receivers. You don't need receivers. You got you one heck of a tight end. You can go get your receiver. Well, Michael Irvin was a workaholic. He was a good receiver. He's not. I would never put him at my top five and greatest receivers of all time. But you can win with Michael Irvin. Why? Because he's part of a triplet. And I'm not talking about triplet with Troy Aikman. I'm talking about the triplet is Jay Novacek, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin. You have to worry about that on offense. As much as you could say something about Troy Aikman, all you want, but Troy Aikman was okay. He was on the same tier as a Jim Kelly, as a who else? Who am I looking for? Phil Simms. He was on that same tier. The only thing that made Troy Aikman better is that he had Emmitt Smith. He had a dominant offensive line. Emmitt Smith, Jay Novacek, Michael Irvin. They pretty much bailed him out a lot of times. They made him elevate his game. That's one thing that the Lions didn't do here. But going back to my point, this is what Bob Quinn was able to do. He got you a running back. He got you an offensive line. He got you a tight end. He did his job. I would have loved to see him finish it, but I understand why they let him go. I get it. But he put this team in position to no longer be 9-7. When he said 9-7 wasn't good enough, he actually put this team in position right now to no longer be 9-7. The only way they will be 9-7, excuse me, based off of what he did and what his foundation that he put down, the only way this team would be 9-7 if they honestly bring in the wrong guy. The guy they would bring in will be worse than what they brought in Patricia and worse than Quinn. They wouldn't know football at all. What Bob Quinn did, he actually tore down everything that Mayhew and Millen brought in here. He tore it down and actually gave this team structure. Now they no longer have to be 9-7, 8-8 again. They could actually legitimately build off of something of not just expectations, but accountability. When you got a guy that comes in from the Kansas City Chiefs, or you got Everson Griffin and the gentleman that came from the linebacker that came from Kansas City Chiefs. And he came over here and he said, this team is championship oriented. And actually they was. When I made those videos about them going to the Super Bowl NFC title game, they really was going to go. The only problem the head coach didn't have another gear. I thought he did. And he actually did. He just didn't want to. It was like it was weird. Because he had the gear in sight, but he just didn't want to tap into it. He didn't want to grow up. Which was going to cost him to let go of something that he held so tightly towards. So it was his demise. He had to be let go because he didn't want to take the next step of his evolution. So he had to be let go. Any person that don't want to go past themselves, you have to let them go. If you get a guy on the team that's about them, you have to let them go. No matter how good or talented that they are. If they're about themselves, then you have to let them go because that will come at a cost of the team. So this is where you get a guy like when you said Daron Harmon said that he respected Bill Belichick by telling him that he wasn't able to sign him back because he can't put one guy ahead of the team. And that's where the problem with the Lions did. And it kind of it's interesting, though, because on one hand, you could say that, not on one hand, I could say it completely all the way around. Bob Quinn actually put a team first. When he drafted Jeff Okudah, he's thinking about team. He can add him to this guy, to this guy, to this guy, to this guy. Bob Quinn was one offseason away from making this team elite. That's offense, defense, special team. One offseason away. Now, all they have to do now is get a general manager who could see what Bob Quinn was doing and go in this one offseason and make this team elite. You got five pieces that you need to assemble to make this team elite. 5 pieces. That's why I was saying Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia only needed one more season, one more off season, whatever, and this team would have been actually elite because he put the team together. The team is finally coming together as a team. We talking about with Jim Caldwell. The reason why I was saying 9-7 wasn't good enough, and why I applauded him for saying that, is because of this reason. They didn't have much of a team. They had a lot of individuals that was, I want to say, they was overrated. It, like, you ever hear the title, like, this is the worst 10-6 team ever. This is the worst, division leading team ever. Yeah, because they over excelled. They basically capitalized off of other mistakes. So the other teams basically pushed them to win. So they're not really good teams all the way around where they complement each other on the field, where they actually play to a strength. When you think about the great teams in the NFL, they play as a collective group. You may have some guys that stand out, but they're not stand out alone. Like, even with, so like, you got to, if I were to use the two guys, if I were to use Reggie White and Ray Lewis, but I'm gonna go Reggie White first. When Reggie White was with Philadelphia, they call him the Minister of Defense, right? And he had the point of attack locked down. His moves, he was strong for one, but he has so many different type of moves, right? But he couldn't do it by himself, right? You had to give him help. So you got him a Clyde Simmons, and then you got him some Seth Joyner and so forth. You got him all these different pieces. Then you go in the secondary, you got Eric Allen and different other guys, right? Now, with that being said, Reggie White was able to be Reggie White because of that. But he really didn't get his recognition until what? We went to Green Bay, right? But that's neither here or there. But his real calling card when he was with Buddy Ryan in that Philadelphia defense, when he had Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons, and I'm missing somebody. It's a William something. I can't think of his name. They was all part. Buddy Ryan's, which he's notorious for doing, what he did with the 85 Chicago Bears team. He gave them a stout defense, and the same thing that he did with the Philadelphia, and I think he had something to do with the Cardinals when he went to Arizona. They turned it around, and they ended up having a good defense. Even when he went to Houston, they had a good defense. Buddy Ryan, that's his calling card. He would get guys like himself. But anyway, the point I was saying about Reggie White is that he didn't have to be the guy by himself. Reggie White was like the standard, and then you get guys that's to that level or above that level. So he did. So Reggie White was special because he had another gear to him. He had top tier talent, right? But he had another gear to him where he had the IQ. That's where you get leverage and positioning and all this other good stuff. Technique. That's where you get that extra edge. That's what makes him very special, such as like a Lawrence Taylor. You have talent, top tier talent, but then you have that next gear that you can't really coach. You can't really like understand the tangibles of it. That's all the gift within them. So the one thing that Bob Quinn has done with this team is to allow the next general manager, head coach to build. He did exactly what they hired him to do, was change his team from no longer being 9-7. This team no longer has to be 9-7 based upon what he did. The foundation that he put here, the fans could say, like, well, these players is not elite. You don't need elite. You need a team. You had elite in Ndamukong Suh. You had elite in Barry Sanders. You had elite in Calvin Johnson. What did it get you? Nowhere. But they never had a team from offensive, defensive, special teams. They never had a team. That's from general manager, head coach, down to the coordinators. the line position. I mean the position coaches. You never had a team. That's one thing that Bob Quinn brought to this organization was a team. Now all they need is a guy that come here and build off of that template. This team has never, this organization have never had that until Bob Quinn. That's why I consider him the best GM they ever had. With that being said, Lions fans, I'll salute.